September 14, 2014, from Ralph Wilson Stadium in Buffalo, New York. It was the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. And the Miami Dolphins won the toss but elected to defer, so the Buffalo Bills would get the ball first, and they would end up punting after crossing midfield. So Miami took over deep in their own territory, backed up against their own 13, but they would punt as well. So the Buffalo Bills would take back over on their 41 as they were primed and ready to strike, and they marched all the way down to the Miami 10-yard line, but they would have to settle for a field goal as Dan Carpenter kicked the 27-yard field goal to make it 3-0 as the Bills took the early lead. Miami then took over at their own 25, and they would be forced to punt 5 plays later, but the punt was blocked, and the Buffalo Bills would take over on the Miami 31. So now the Bills would get into field goal range once more as they started off their drive in field goal range. They made it all the way to the 7-yard line, but they would be forced to settle for another Dan Carpenter kick, this time a 27-yard field goal to make it 6-0. So Carpenter kicked 2 27-yard field goals, and the Bills had 6 points on the board as the first quarter came to a close moments later as the Dolphins had the ball and opened up the second quarter, but they punted once again, and so now Buffalo took over near midfield on the 47-yard line, marched back to the red zone of Miami on the 13-yard line, where Dan Carpenter kicked his third field goal of the game, this time a 31-yard field goal, and it would be 9-0 Buffalo. So now Miami had the ball with a little over 10 minutes left before halftime, and they would end up punting once more as they were not able to get anything going on the field on the offensive end in the first half. So now Buffalo had the ball, but they would punt as well. And then Miami got it back, and they went 3 and out and punted yet again. And now Buffalo had the ball with about 5 minutes left before halftime, and they punted. Miami then took over on their own 12-yard line with about 2 minutes left before halftime, but they weren't able to get to midfield or field goal range as the clock ticked down and the half came to a close. But the Dolphins would start off the third quarter with the ball, and they drove all the way to the red zone as they reached the Buffalo 15, but they would end up settling for a 34-yard kick by Caleb Sturgis. So now they would kick off to the Buffalo Bills, and that's when CJ Spiller returned the kickoff 102 yards for the touchdown, and the Buffalo Bills were now up 16-3 as they circled the wagons, and they were up by 2 touchdowns. So now the Dolphins had the ball, and they needed a score, and Ryan Tannehill drove them 64 yards on 11 plays in about 6 minutes, capped off by a 7-yard touchdown pass to Mike Wallace, and it was now a 6-point game as they trailed by 6 points, 16-10. So Buffalo was up by 6, and they got the ball with about 3 minutes left in the third. And EJ Manuel made short work of the field as he marched the Bills 77 yards in 6 plays, capped off by a 12-yard touchdown pass to Sammy Watkins as Buffalo extended their lead back to 13. So now Miami got the ball with about 13 seconds left in the quarter and brought it to a close and would open up the fourth, but they would be forced to punt. So Buffalo took back over just a few ticks off the clock into the fourth quarter, and they marched all the way down to the red zone onto the Miami 14, where Dan Carpenter once again kicked the field goal, this time a 32-yarder to make it 26-10 as the Buffalo Bills extended their lead to 16. So Miami took over with about 10.5 minutes left to play, and they needed to score. Ryan Tannehill brought them to midfield, but they would go for it on 4th and 1 from the Buffalo 48, and they would be stopped short as they actually lost 4 yards and turned the ball over on downs as Buffalo took over on the Miami 48. But they would go 3 and out as they were forced to punt, and they ended up giving the ball back, but actually it was a muffed catch, and Buffalo recovered, so now they had the ball on the Miami 17 in a prime position to score. Dan Carpenter, though, would end up coming out 4 plays later as they weren't able to get into the end zone to attempt a 31-yard field goal, and he had been clutch, totally solid all game, but here he missed, And now the Dolphins got the ball back on their own 21 with 16-point deficit to overcome, but only 4 minutes to do it in. And they weren't able to do it. They didn't get anything going. They weren't even able to get a first down as they ended up going for it on 4th and 4, and an incomplete pass turned the ball over on downs once again. And now Buffalo would take over with 3.5 minutes left, and 4 plays later, after having started with that short field on the Miami 27, they ended up not getting a first down, but Dan Carpenter redeemed himself as now he kicked a 38-yard field goal to make it 29-10 as this game was out of reach. The Dolphins had 2 minutes left, and they would try to get something going. They made it all the way to the red zone of Buffalo to the 20-yard line, but Ryan Tannehill was intercepted by McClevin, and that brought this game to an end as EJ Manuel took the knee, and the final score was 29-10 as the Buffalo Bills beat the Miami Dolphins in Orchard Park. And in this game, EJ Manuel was 16 for 26 with 202 yards and 1 touchdown as he protected the ball and he got in the end zone, and the Buffalo Bills did what they needed to win. Ryan Tannehill was 31 for 49 with 241 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. The leading rusher in this game was CJ Spiller with 69 yards off of 12 carries. He also had a 9-yard reception, his only reception of the game. And don't forget about that 102-yard kick return, as that was really the dagger in the heart of the Dolphins, as that really sealed the deal. He actually had another 20 yards on another return for 122 return yards. But that touchdown was really the big play of the game. Of course, Dan Carpenter, although he did miss that one kick, he was 5 for 6 from field goals, as he was a huge part. I mean, he put up 15 points in a game they won by 19. So without him, it's a 4-point game. So Dan Carpenter comes up huge. And don't forget about Sammy Watkins, who was the leading receiver in this game. He had 117 yards off of 8 receptions and a touchdown. So the Buffalo Bills win for the second week in a row as they're now 2-0. As they drop the Dolphins, and the Bills are in the lead in the AFC East as the Buffalo Bills are in first place, and they won this game 29-10.